The lock-in is a conversation on a canal boat, often accompanied by beer, or a pina colada, whatever floats your canal boat. Every couple of weeks, we'll talk to someone from Whitchurch who has contributed towards our community, who has a story, who makes the town special. They can be from any age, any background, any walk of life, but they all embody the spirit of this fantastic, sometimes overly modest little town. So, if you've got a story, something to say, or know someone that does, we'd love to get you or them on board and tell us what makes you rock. So, Mark, final... Even then I got it wrong. Obviously I was going to say it. Mark, vinyl.
The final... Oh, no, yeah, the vinyl countdown.
Vinyl countdown. I thought he was brilliant. I thought... what I was imagining, because obviously he's a director of corporate sales in the construction industry, did he have his hair like that?
He should have done.
He really should have done.
I would hope he did.
So anyway, This is a man, and you'll hear his podcast in a sec, who basically thought, okay, I've done really well, had quite enough of that, thank you very much indeed, I'm going to do what I really love, which is get into music and sell music, specifically on vinyl, and that's what he's done. And I think he's doing okay, and he's loving it, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought he was great. I'm a musician, got on well with him.
Your new best friend forever?
Well, I hope so. I need to go and see him again.
You went out
first.
for dinner the other day, didn't
No.
you?
Well, I mean, you've got to do what you love, right?
And Laurie clearly
Well, I
loves
didn't
Mark.
want to make Dave jealous.
No, that's fair enough. It would upset our dynamic, wouldn't it? Which is quite cosy.
Anyway, shall we get on with the podcast?
Do you not want to speak some more about this?
No.
No, I think that's absolutely fine. Let's bang on.
I think we're
Then
done.
I get to
Yeah, I
listen
think
to
we're
us.
done on the introduction.
Are we done?
We're done.
Dave, are we
till-
done?
Rock on, Tommy.
We're done until we're done.
Done.
Anyway, I hope everybody likes my rock version of our theme tune as well.
Definitely worth listening to. Things that you like doing it. You wouldn't have done it otherwise, Laurie.
He says to me, we'll ask each guest what style of music they like, and you can modify the theme tune for each one of them.
And
Because everything's easy when you don't have to do it.
If they like fucking some sort of Peruvian fucking walla music,
flutes and things.
If we did have a pipe band, that would be fantastic. No, I think you should do it.
Yeah.
So, Mark.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Interject later, and
I
I'll
will.
rustle some crisps again. So we've got Mark with a brilliantly named. It's almost the best dad pun ever, but it's completely acceptable in the context that he's used it in. Mark, the vinyl countdown. Brilliant. Why? Because it was so obvious.
I love puns.
No.
I must admit, I can remember the day I come up with it. We was thinking for about a week, trying to come up with a really good pun around records or music.
And then
or
you gave
something.
up.
And we did give up, and I was walking the dog. And I remember I just turned to my wife and went, it's got to be the vinyl countdown, isn't it? And instantly we all agreed. So, yeah, I like a good dad pun.
Yeah, and I think we all do. And I think having the guts to do it as well and find it very amusing. I mean, to be fair, this is called Canal Light Vessel Automatic, which means no sense whatsoever. Laurie has interjected this before. The reason I called it this was because I love sailing, I love the water, I love the shipping forecast, and I love music, despite having no ability, apart from maybe as a DJ, Laurie, because it's easy, isn't it?
In your own mind.
Yeah.
You've got plenty of talent in your own mind.
Exactly. So I thought if it was going to be a band, I would definitely call it after one of the shipping forecast areas, which is Canal Light Vessel Automatic. But obviously the band was never going to happen. So
it's kind of like Warrington Town Planning.
Yes.
Who are quite a niche band.
That's actually a band. I thought you were literally talking about the council.
Yeah, I was going to make a little joke then, but no, it's an actual band.
It's an actual band. Yeah, Warrington Town Planning, which I think is an amazing name for a band.
That is a name for a band. I think Canal Light Vessel Automatics, I hope it's got a bit more romance to it. And
definitely.
Which is
the Warrington Town Planning.
Yeah,
Warrington.
Well, it depends on your taste in romance, but
romance. I tell you what, the next woman you meet, say the words Canal Light Vessel Automatic to her,
Watch
and
her
see
melt.
how romantic that is.
No, she'll melt.
She'll melt, but she might.
It's going to be better than Warrington Town Planning, though. Surely, if you say that to her.
Unless maybe if I could work for Warrington Town Planning. Although she could escape at 4 miles an hour, the obligatory British waterway speed. So thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I keep walking past the store, and I popped in to see you, and it's been an absolute pleasure because, despite the fact that I've not bought anything, which I do feel slightly guilty about, you had a Beatles thing outside a while ago, and I have a really close friend, and she's still obsessed with George Harrison, and she will die on a hill over George Harrison. But you had a brilliant thick vinyl in the window. What was it? Can you remember?
We've had several. So we've had, in fact, we've probably had their entire back catalogue, including all the weird and wonderful French presses and German presses, etc., etc. But we did a big Beatles Christmas display.
Yeah.
Which might be the one you're referring
yes,
to.
It was, I think.
And we had fantastic little Abbey Road diorama that we kind of set up as well, which someone very handsomely made for me, which was the 4 Beatles walking across a pelican crossing.
Nice.
Or is it a zebra crossing? I'm not sure. Either way.
That's why I failed the driving test.
Absolutely.
Was it the one where Paul McCartney's supposed to be dead? Isn't he got like barefoot?
He's barefoot,
There's a weird thing about that, right?
Yeah, definitely very weird. But I don't think he died. I'm pretty certain he stayed alive.
He's not William Shepherd.
No. I'm pretty certain, but there is very various kind of conspiracy theories around that.
Hence the reason
era.
Dave brought it up, obviously.
But yeah, I mean, George Harrison is probably, I don't know, I think John Lennon is probably the greatest songwriter ever. Maybe him or Bowie.
Thank you, I'll go with you on that.
But there's something amazing about George Harrison, I think, that I think because he was the underrated one, and probably some of the Beatles' best songs were written by him. I think While My Guitar Gently Weeps is probably my favourite, maybe.
Yeah, it's a brilliant song.
And I also love the quote from Frank Sinatra, which is he thinks that, or he used to think, because he's obviously no longer with us, that Something was the best Lennon-McCartney song.
Really?
Yeah, which is obviously actually a George Harrison song.
Okay.
So
he's a bit low key, really, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. There's something. John and Paul's writing were kind of opposites. I always felt there was that very kind of almost obvious songwriting ability with Paul McCartney, and then that amazing weirdness almost that John Lennon used to do. Yeah. And when they used to come together and kind of complement each other, it was the perfect track in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think George Harrison had that ability to do what both of them did. I think My Sweet Lord is a perfect example of that simplistic, beautiful songwriting in its very kind of most obvious form. And then you got something like Something, which is just completely different in terms of its dynamics and certainly how it was recorded and how he sang it and all the rest of it. So
we straddle those two, like traditional and experimental on
absolutely
his own.
On his own, yeah. I think he is the mashup of Paul and John.
Got it. And such a nice guy. And
yeah, fantastic guy. There's some amazing stories with him, about him with his son. I think his son, Danny's, I read somewhere that his way of retaliating or becoming rebellious, almost like his father, was going to school. Because there was many occasions. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to get straight A's and go to university.
But there was so many occasions apparently where George used to say, let's just stay at home and play guitar. I've got my home studio, let's record some songs. And he kind of, his rebellious act was, no, I'm going to school. And I think on one occasion there's a famous story where he got into trouble. Danny got into trouble somewhere doing something or other. I can't remember what it was, and the police brought him home, and the police knocked on the door and explained to George Harrison what he'd done, and he goes, "What do you want me to do about it? Just fuck off, will you?" And I just thought that was just perfect George Harrison in a nutshell. In that he had this quiet Beatle persona, but I think he was probably, out of all of them, the nicest rounded one.
And there has to be one, doesn't there?
There has to be one.
So talking of rebellion, so I know a little bit about your background. Is doing this now with Vinyl Countdown, is it your rebellion, or is it your I'm going to do what I want to do now? Because it's clearly a massive passion for you.
It is. I think it's a bit of both, if I'm being honest. Weirdly, I don't think I was ever that rebellious.
Now is the time to start.
Absolutely, it's never too late to start being rebellious.
I've had 3 midlife crises already, me personally, but yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I think when I first came out of college and started playing in bands and was juggling that with a job, I can kind of remember back then that I wasn't that bothered about the job. It just gave me money so that I could go out and buy guitar pedals and better guitars and better amps and things like that.
Laurie's ears have definitely looked up.
Oh yeah.
It kind of fueled the passion.
He started
Absolutely.
with the little tears running down the front of his glasses.
My brother already.
It's when I saw 50 quid, I didn't say, "Oh, that's 50 quid." I said, "That's a new Boss pedal," or something like that. So that period, I didn't think I was that rebellious because I was kind of juggling the two. And then quite quickly after that, I kind of got married and had kids and all the rest of it. And then I suppose I had to put my big boy pants on a little bit and kind of try and take work more seriously, which is what I did. And
because where were you down south?
Yeah, so I was born in East London.
Yeah.
And brought up East London and Essex, and just kind of fell into. I can remember why I fell into sales. I started off working in a bank, would you believe? And that was at Piccadilly Circus, this bank, and that was just.
So just quiet then.
Yeah, just an excuse to hit happy hour at 5 o'clock after work. That was really all that was about, and I hated it. And I couldn't wait to get out of there. I remember I started doing the banking exams. I think I went to one of them and then I just didn't bother turning up for any of it. I just completely lost interest with it. And I managed to get this job that was local to me, so I liked the fact that it was local because the commute was now only 15 minutes in the car as opposed to an hour and a half on the train. And I was working actually for John Menzies in their distribution warehouse, and there was this
blast from the past.
Yeah, absolutely. John Menzies, yeah, absolutely. And I remember there was this sales rep that used to come in, and he had a right flash motor, and I just thought, I reckon I could do that. So I just applied for sales jobs, and eventually got offered a sales job, and that was how I got into sales. And that also kind of coincided with the whole, right, okay, I've got to start taking a career a bit more seriously and try and earn some money so that I can effectively pay a mortgage and bring up kids and all the rest of it. So I did that for 25, 30 years, and I was, obviously my sales career progressed, and ended up working in blue chip companies and managing sales teams.
Tax era?
No, it was actually the construction industry.
Construction was okay.
So I was doing that for a long, long time, and as I say, I was running sales teams down in London, and then when I moved up here, we was looking to develop the north of England and do stuff up there as well.
So just stop you there. I was in sales and construction, and then I was thinking, okay, company, and the line, we were looking to develop the north of England.
Yeah, no,
this is quite large scale.
It was. Well, I tell you what was very strange about the whole thing is
who are you? The Levelling Up Committee?
Yeah, it was. It was very odd. It was so strange that I think the company realised that something like 75% of their business was basically in London. and gradually then expanded out into Wales and the southwest, and then the north, and realised it's actually Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool,
People say
Newcastle.
this Southerners are London centric. I can't have guessed.
It was just very strange, the whole thing. But so that's how I got to move up here, and I had a lovely house in Hanmer, and that's how I kind of got to know Whitchurch. Effectively, I got offered this dream job, which was shed load more money, doing pretty much the same thing, and with a rival company. So I decided to take the job. Also with it in the back of my mind that they could be using me for my contacts, but I kind of got to that point where I didn't really care. I thought, if I've got to work in this job that I don't really enjoy, you know what, I'm gonna go for the most amount of money. So I took the job, and the weird thing about it was I was on a 6-month contract termination. So my other company put me on garden leave for 6 months. So I was just sitting at home on full pay, not being able to work, not allowed to work, which...
My guitar gently weeps.
Sounds like... so I actually thought in that period, right, this is it. I've got this massive backlog of songs. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to record them all. And
stuff that you've self-penned?
Yeah, and all stuff that have
God,
kind of
see a band starting here.
riffs flying around my head for years and all sorts like that. So that was going to be my writing period. And it was that kind of thing where it was enforced on you. I just couldn't do it.
I was just going to say to you, when you've got all the time in the world to write a song and you know you must write one, that's the very moment when you can't
do
write
it.
one.
Can't do it.
You cannot do it.
I just had I had 6 months worth of writer's block, so I ended up watching the entire Walker Texas Ranger from start to finish, and every Jason Statham movie, and just the weirdest combination of things to kind of fill my day.
And everything but. It's such a sod's law, isn't it? It's such a paradox.
And the weird thing is, if I went back kind of 15, 20 years when I was in a band that I remember that the singer in the band started booking gigs, and I'm like, we haven't even got a song, we haven't written a song yet, and he's got... Yeah, we've got a gig in 4 weeks.
This reminds me of that.
It's no trouble, though.
Exactly. Sorry for interjecting, but that's exactly what the guys were saying. How long did it take you to do our little theme tune?
Yeah.
And it was about an hour, because I've only had an hour and I had to do it.
Absolutely.
If I'd have had a bit of time to procrastinate, I would never have done it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that is complete.
You just do it.
That's his creativity, though. We're all a bit like that.
And
we work. It's shit. This presentation
Yeah,
is
got to do it
be
now.
done by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I've had 4 weeks. Now it's the
Now
time
I've got to do it. But it was just this weird thing as well that myself and the singer were the main songwriter, the only songwriters. So he'd write a song and he'd go, right, this is the first one. Oh, for fuck's sake, he's written a really good song, yeah. What am I supposed to say? All of a sudden, I'm like, bang, right, here we go.
So you're like McCartney and Lennon.
And it was just like pushing them backwards and forwards. And we had, an 8-song set to go out and do 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I had a home recording studio at the time, so I recorded everything and all the rest of it. And it was just easy. And this garden leave period was the exact opposite, because I had no one else pushing me. Everyone else was at work. I had, I literally could do whatever I wanted every single day, and it was the hardest thing in the world to get through that 6 months, because it was just tiresome. And even now, I struggle on a Sunday.
It's strange, isn't it? Right? How it's like a vacuum. Like, you can't make art in a vacuum. It's almost like you have to be busy and doing stuff and plugged into like the world and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you're not, and time is long, and you've got all the time in the world to do it. It's just what you said. It's nuts, isn't it?
It was the fact that kind of in my head the whole time was, right, we've now got 3 weeks now to go, and we've only got 1.5 songs, and you'd hear someone say something, and I had this, I'd started kind of on my notes on my phone, started writing down things that people say, because we'd use them as lyrics and things like that, and it'd just be that starting point, of a lyric, because I was always lyrics were always my. I could never write lyrics.
You needed a Bernie Taupin, didn't you?
I did.
Well, does anyone need a Bernie Taupin?
But I used to be sitting in cafes and someone would say something really interesting. Well, that's a really good line. I'll write that down, and then that would be the starting point. And I maybe not even end up with that line in the song, but it was just the trigger.
It is really in that, because despite my background being, I suppose I was called a suit in advertising, so as in client service, with a bit of planning and strategy thrown in, but massively I was a frustrated creative. In fact, I used to get bollocked when I was quite junior by the creative directors at different agencies weekly. Get out of the studio until the work is finished. They don't need your ideas.
Yeah.
They still come. And then as you get more senior, I was a terrible account handler, because the detail was just bothered me. But the big ideas, and as you get senior, you can have more influence. And you're absolutely right about creativity, I think. You need to have that stimuli of what's going on around you, listening to people, picking things up, and then it will start a pattern in your brain, and you might find something almost semi-original.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's parameters as well. If someone said to you, "Okay, Laurie, you're a genius. Go out and be creative." You do nothing.
Smash him in the face.
However, if you said, "Laurie, this needs doing quite quickly within these parameters," I think creativity needs parameters.
It needs a time scale.
It needs some form of rule.
Yeah. A narrow perimeter is what
it needs a brief, which is why briefs and agencies are so important, because otherwise you either do nothing or it's wrong.
Yeah.
Laurie, you've done very well today, thank you.
You condescending bastard.
Get off my boat. Yeah, it's your boat, isn't it?
Get off my boat.
So you were going to write, and instead you watched.
I watched Walker Texas Ranger and all sorts of strange things on DVD for 6 months. Started this job, and to be fair, they were a nice enough company. The weird thing was, this was very strange, because I'd lived in Essex. And in my previous company, the head office was in Liverpool. So I thought, okay, moving up here, I'm actually close to the office. Mm-hmm. It would save me on sales meetings, whole days off the road and things like that. And then after I'd moved up here, I then moved to this other company, and their head office was in Essex. So I was doing the same thing in reverse. But they were nice enough, but... they gave me a 2-year plan and decided to bin me off after a year, which was purely down to their overestimation of what they thought the sales forecast was going to be.
That never happens in life.
Absolutely. So they had this grandiose plan, and my 2-year plan was cut in half, which, if you can imagine construction, how long it takes to build a commercial building.
Well, you were going to come and redevelop the north, weren't you? So I imagine that would have taken
absolutely. Yeah, that's not something you do overnight.
It was going to travel on HS2 to get here as well.
We gave you 2 years, but we now need the whole of the north developed in just one.
In just 1 year. It was ridiculous. Most projects, and you've got to remember as well, this was all around COVID as well. So there was massive price increases and all sorts. So everything was getting shelved. People were... Genuinely, there were kind of blocks of flats going up that the estimation had kind of tripled in that COVID period. So companies were actually saying, well, I'm just going to cotton wool.
Laurie, if you're sneaking a beer, don't worry about being quiet. Just do it. We're all friends here.
No, I was going to say silence in court.
Sorry, Mike. He does this all the time. It is his boat.
Yeah, it is his boat, yeah.
Sorry,
so they genuinely... projects were getting cotton wooled because it was costing too much to actually finish it. It was actually the developer was better off just sitting on the land than actually developing it. So it was a very strange period. So they decided to bin me off, and at that point, I knew the moment
spaghetti westerns it was going to be.
Absolutely. I was going to go from Clint Eastwood's back catalogue, but no. I knew at the moment. I remember sitting in a service station, because they very productively did it in a service station.
They are the most depressing places on God's earth, service stations. Keele.
And they basically, in fact, it was Keele.
Oh, you said to be cold. Go get cold at Keele service station.
But they kind of said to me, "Oh yeah, no, we've got an offer for you. You can either leave, or you can do the same job for 25% of your salary."
Yep.
And I went, well, I'm not doing that. I said I could walk out of here and get a job with any other construction company on the full salary, so why would I take 25%?
Yeah.
So I walked away, and at that moment I walked away, I knew I was never doing that job again.
Yeah.
I just knew that I just had enough. I don't care what the consequences were. I was in a position where kids were grown up and kind of left home. One had definitely left home. One was kind of clinging on, but they were big enough and ugly enough to look after themselves.
Yeah.
So I was in that position where I could just go, fuck it, I'm not going back, and that meant a huge lifestyle change.
Yeah.
I had all the flash cars and the motorbikes went. Unfortunately, we had to lose our house. I don't mind saying this, I went from £100,000 a year to £8,000 a year overnight. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I knew was I didn't want to be involved with any more corporate bullshit. I'd had my fill of it for
Laurie,
25 years.
I think I can live with that. Can you live with that,
That was
Laurie?
me in 2004.
Yeah.
When I left and decided I'd never go back to IT and started my recording studio.
Mm.
And you did something?
And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I ended up, funnily enough, I was working in Smith's because I just wanted to get out of the house because I'd obviously watched Walker Texas Ranger and all the rest of it.
I've seen it all now.
Just quick tip.
I want to head outside.
Sorry, I need to stop you. It's doing my head in. The actor in Walker Texas Rangers,
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris.
Is it
Yeah,
Chuck Norris?
Yeah.
I think
There
with
you
Chuck
go.
Norris.
There you go.
I mean, the whole just very quickly. After again corporate, when I was with Hewlett Packard for a while, not HP Source, which obviously everybody thinks is hilarious. I was very, very down for about 4 or 5 months, and I've realised looking back, I did very little, but I have watched the entire back catalogue of Midsummer Murders, which is highly embarrassing. Not just the new guy, but John Nettles as well. Bergerac. When Bergerac took a secondment
I feel so much happier about Chuck Norris now.
Bergerac left Guernsey and decided he'd move to the south.
You couldn't have
of
watched
England.
Breaking Bad or something
No,
like
I couldn't afford any of the subscription, so it was just it was literally Midsummer Murders. But the thing is, having watched 147 of them, I can't remember any of them.
No,
They've all blended.
They're all melted into one.
If someone gets killed,
No,
John Nettles shows
an
up.
average of 3.5 people each episode.
each episode. Well,
Anyway, sorry.
well, I forget what.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No. Funnily enough, actually, that reminds me of a really funny story. Walker Texas Ranger, because the only way I could get them all was to buy them off eBay, and people were selling them for like £2 on eBay and
That
stuff
much?
like that. Yeah, I think one series I had to pay a £5 for because it was the missing series. Anyway, when they used to come through the post, there was like 9 seasons of this rubbish, and I used to check the DVDs were working because it would be a bugbear of mine in advance to settle down and watch the next episode.
The disappointment.
You're like a completionist. Or
Absolutely,
something.
I'm the ultimate completionist, and I just remember and this is the only episode I can remember. Going back to what you said, you can't remember any episodes. I remember just playing it, and his girlfriend was tied up with a comedy bomb attached to her.
Why are we laughing? That's horrendous.
that was counting
Shockingly
down,
bad.
and I thought that's good telly, isn't it? That is good telly.
That's definitely not a trope I've seen. Chuck Norris, a girl tied up with a bomb and a big ticker going.
Yeah.
3. Well, it's okay, honey. Give me 2 seconds till it's down to 1.
What was it
Absolutely.
like to an alarm clock? Not even a digital thing.
No, I can't. Honestly, I think it was like a weird alarm clock on.
Was it
oh my
was
word.
it red wire, green wire?
That's exactly
Red wire,
it.
green
Yeah,
wire. No,
absolutely.
chocolate red one.
And I just thought, I can't wait to get to that episode. That's how have they got themselves into this situation. But anyway, that aside. So yeah, where was it? Yeah, so we unfortunately had to kind of give up the house and everything, and I ended up working in Smith's in Whitchurch.
Yep.
Just until I figured out what I was going to do. And we noticed over at the Antiques Emporium that there was this unit that was free. And we saw it a few times, and I thought, I wonder if anyone's interested in buying records, because hopefully I could get that unit, set something up and see what happens, which is exactly what I did. And it astonished me more or less straight away the amount of people that were very much like me, and you said the word completist. Yeah. Most vinyl collectors are completists, and it's not just about having every record by a band. I mean, I've got customers who come in and, for example, their favourite Beatles album is Revolver, so he wants every different version of Revolver.
So when you say every different version of Revolver, what? As in
misprints, as in...
Oh, crikey.
So he had 35 different records, all of Revolver. And he was getting quite excited because I had a German one, and he didn't have the German one.
So this is really fascinating me, because the vinyl revival, there's almost a name in that, but the vinyl revival, is it, and we had Maria on a few weeks ago, and she was talking about the process of shopping, slow, a bit more mindful. I'm sorry I've used that word, it's a complete cliche, and it's everywhere, but it's a process, isn't it? And playing a record is a process. So there's the process, there's the alleged warmth of the sound, which you can talk to us about, but that side of it as well, I'm trying to think of it as, who's my market going to be in Whitchurch with vinyl? But you both talk about the completionist aspect. People who, it is such an item that I think inspires so much passion, and because there is, as you've just pointed out, so many different variants. Yeah, people want
all the different variants. It's strange in itself in that there's, I've got customers who only buy new. I have customers who only buy second hand because they want, I'm doing the inverted commas here, they want original pressings and things like that.
Yeah, is there a difference in quality in the don't want to derail you.
No, there is. So obviously the original pressing is exactly what it is. It's the original pressing, so it's original. So that's how it originally came out and how it originally sounded. So there's obviously a lot of nostalgia with that. The problem with that is that obviously recording technology, when you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s and even the 80s, is obviously nowhere near the level that we've got nowadays.
So wasn't it like a tin can with a bit of string going through it, connected to another tin can?
The classic example of that is when the Beatles albums, I don't know why we're talking about Beatles so much, but anyway.
I hate the Beatles. I know it's sacrilege, but they bore me.
But
terrible.
Anyway, the Beatles albums, they were all originally in mono. And then they decided to release them in stereo, but they didn't do a stereo mix.
They stuck the drum track on one side,
and they literally it was just like panning stuff left them, which isn't a stereo mix. That's just, we're going to have drums here and we're going to have whatever here. And from that point of view, those early pressings don't sound that great. Now, not every modern day remaster and pressing kind of cuts the mustard, shall we say, but a lot of them do. Perfect examples are, once again, Beatles. Giles Martin, who's George Martin's son, the original producer, has remixed and remastered pretty much all the albums now, I believe. And if you've only got to listen to Sgt. Pepper's, his version of it, if you like, as opposed to the original version. The other good ones are all the Led Zeppelin ones. They went through a perfect remaster. Jimmy Page remastered them all in 2018. Now, you listen to the original, and this is going to be sacrilege here, because you listen to the original, and to me, it's very mushy. It's very... the best way to describe it is the tracks feel like they're on top of each other. So everyone's fighting for this space.
Yeah,
and
they're not blending.
No, you can't hear anything properly because everyone's fighting each other.
More of a layered shot than a perfectly mixed cocktail.
There you go. I knew we'd get back to drink.
A cement mixer.
But what Jimmy Page did was he separated the tracks.
Yeah.
So if you stand in front of the speakers, and I did this when I blew my mind when I first got the remastered version of Led Zeppelin 3, you can perfectly hear all four of them, and it just sounds absolutely amazing.
It's not mushy.
It's not mushy.
And what a band though to hear it properly.
Absolutely,
they are an amazing band.
It just sounds. It's the same album, but once again, going back to the completest thing, I've got originals, and I've got the new versions, and the new versions are on heavier vinyl. so they tend to last longer, they're more stable, etc., etc., as opposed to, if you can remember records from the 60s and 70s, they're very flimsy. You could kind of almost use them as a fan.
We can't, but
well, no, that's what I was alluding to.
I can remember.
You can remember gramophones, can't you?
If you bought a copy of the NME, you used to get a free record, and it was like the floppiest thing.
Absolutely, it's a bit of paper
you could
almost.
possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And you stuck it on your record player, and you had to like hold
Disintegrate
it to hold it down to stop it slipping. Amazing.
But yeah, it's so I have the originals because I like collecting the originals. But if I want to listen to them, firstly, especially some of the originals are massive, talking massive money.
Of course.
There's, some of the auctions that I go to pick up second-hand stock, first editions of Please Please Me easily get you £1,000. Low number white albums will easily get you £2,000-3,000. There's Sex Pistols, so God Save the Queen on A&M, which is effectively Sex Pistols signed to A&M, and they pressed 200 singles of God Save the Queen. Mm-hmm. 100 of them went out as promos to record shops and DJs, etc., etc. 100 of them sat in the production office unused. And then the Sex Pistols did one of their infamous interviews where they swore and all the rest of it, and A&M said, no, we're not having this, and dropped them like a hot stone. Yeah. But these new records were already out. So they then eventually signed to Virgin. But these A&M singles are the holy grail. And one came up at the last auction I was at, which sold for £20,000, and that's just a 7-inch single. Do
you know what? I'm not. I was trying to think about this on the way here and overthinking about it last night, and I was trying to think about how the cost, the prices you've just talked about, and it's really not surprising, is it? Because if you kind of equate it to art, for example, I can have. If I was very, very rich, I could have a Matisse or a Turner or a whoever that I loved, or a singer sergeant on my wall, and it's going to cost me a fortune. Unfortunately, I can't have David Bowie on my wall unless he was like Han Solo in Carbonite, very sadly, or my favourite artist on my wall. But the closest I can get to having an original bit of their work, I suppose, is an original pressing. Yeah,
absolutely. And especially when you pick those bands that... See, it's a weird... I was talking to a customer about it the other day. It's a weird kind of Venn diagram with it. It's the band has got to be cult enough that there wasn't millions of copies pressed, because if there's millions... ABBA's a good example of that. ABBA are incredibly popular.
I actually love ABBA.
The only medium that you could buy their stuff on at the time was record or cassette.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely millions of their records out there.
Yeah.
Now, even though they're still very popular, because so many of them were pressed, they're £5 albums. They're not worth a lot of money because there are so many of them.
Not so much the scarcity of it. There's a kind of sweet spot, isn't
there? Yeah, there's that. If you think of the Venn diagram of cult status against popularity, there's that little segment in the middle where their first album, perhaps the record company weren't sure, so didn't press that many, or they literally... I mean, 90s are a good example in that the 90s... all stuff in that period was moving over to CD, so less vinyl was being produced. So early Oasis albums, for example, on their original label Creation, they maintain a high value, about 250, 300 quid for something like Definitely Maybe on Creation, because there were so few, so they've kind of got that cult rarity, but they're now hugely popular still, and therefore they're heavily sought after.
It's so weird. It's like it's almost like the medium is the masses. The medium is captured like the moment.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's captured the moment like a wave breaking.
Absolutely.
That was the point.
Absolutely right. It's and you can't. It's really difficult until you, and it just comes down to experience over years of looking at thousands and thousands of records and knowing which ones that you stumble across are worth more money than others. It's very, very difficult. When I first started doing this, there'd be records in there that I used to divide them into piles. Right, this is, I can sell these. These are worth money. Yep, these are okay. I reckon I can sell those. And these are rubbish. I don't know what this is all about. And in the rubbish pile, there'd always be a £200 album. Because it was a band I'd never heard of. And at the time, a good example was, bands like Gentle Giant from the 70s, I believe were nicknamed Too Prog for Prog. Which,
or Too Pretentious for Pretentious.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have got that cult status, even though a lot of their albums were pressed, they haven't got that longevity that, say, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin have got. So they're rare for a different kind of reason. So it's very strange what's... if I'm being honest, I just look for £15-20 albums. That's my sweet spot in the shop.
Because there's a chap he runs the art gallery up opposite somewhere else up the high street, but he's been there for a while, I think. And I was in there because if I had money, I'd art, records, music. Actually, I'd do boats as well. Actually, the list goes on. Anyway, but he was saying he has a sweet spot as well. And obviously, your background in sales, you're very focused on the numbers. I'm just really interested because there was a chap I knew who kind of did a very similar thing to you, where I lived in Barnes in southwest London, and he was sales in corporates and just thought, sod this. I'm stopping. I've had enough. And he had a little record shop and he loved it. However, your customers, what are they? I mean, do you have a typical customer? Are they quite local? Are they real aficionados? Are they music lovers? Or they're just looking... Do you have a typical or a mixture?
All of the above. I think the biggest thing about having a record shop is the community.
Yep.
And that is that when you have got Spotify or Apple Music and you're looking for something to listen to, you'll either have to know the band, so search for them, or in which case, if you know them, you probably have already listened to them, if that kind of makes sense, because how would you know them if it's like chicken and egg. The other thing is you obviously get that wonderful algorithm that they set you up on, which is you listen to Elton John, therefore you're going to like Morbid Angel or something, and it's never right. But the process of buying a record is such a wider thing than listening to the music. The first thing is, and I can remember going back to when I was a teenager and I was first allowed to go up to the West End in London to go record shopping, because I was very much into heavy metal. The local record shop, they might have had Bon Jovi, but that was about their limit, and I was kind of much more
heavy, man.
No, I was much more your Slayer and Death Angel kind of guy at the time.
I don't think I went deep enough with the theme tune. I needed to go deeper.
We need some chainsaws.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was an event buying a record. So it wasn't something that took 5 minutes or even 5 seconds on Spotify where you pick your phone up, I'm going to listen to that, 30 seconds later, I don't like it, delete. It was the fact that I'd saved up my pocket money for a week.
It's the process.
Yep. Got on a train that took 45... Well, actually got on a bus first that took me to the train station, and then the train was 45 minutes into the West End. We'd then spend all day... There was a record shop called Shades in Dean Street, which was like a little pokey back street off of Oxford Street, and you'd go down into this, what I can only describe as a dungeon. There was just not a window in sight, and you go down there and it was just wall to wall thrash and death metal, and we was in our element. And then you would come up and you'd go into Carnaby Street, and there was one in Carnaby Street which the name escapes me, which was they actually had natural light in there, so that was quite fancy.
Depressing.
So we used to go to those. We'd buy ourselves however many albums we could afford at the time. Quite often also go into the Marquee or the Astoria in the evening. We'd coincide it with a gig. You'd get through the door for £3 or whatever. you'd see a band or two, and then you'd be coming home, and then of course it was at that point that all the rappers come off of it, and you're reading the lyrics and you're seeing who's produced it and all the rest of it. Absolutely.
Yes, it's like a tangible thing that you can hold on to.
By the time you've got home, you've already got a relationship with this thing, because you've spent all this money and time,
and like Carly Simon says, you've had the anticipation.
Absolutely.
You've had like a kind of tribulation to get to it.
Absolutely.
You've had a journey.
It was hard work. It was hard work.
Yes.
Doing that, and because it was hard work and it cost you so much money, you had to enjoy it. The amount of crap albums I persevered through for the next 2 or 3 weeks until I could afford and go and do it again.
I'm going to make the best of this.
Absolutely, and they're some of my favourite albums now. And it's exactly the same now. So someone's now either got to walk into Whitchurch, they've got to jump in a car if they live in one of the outlying villages and all the rest of it, come to the shop, and then that's when the experience starts, because they don't know what they're going to buy.
Oh, so they come in, so you get some people who are going to come in knowing what they're looking for, and some people are coming in and going, I'm just going to go mooch.
There's the moochers, and there's obviously the people that I'm going to buy Genesis, and then they walk out with, I don't know, Procol Harum or something, because something's caught their eye, or a conversation's been struck up with either me or the person opposite them also flicking through the albums, and all of a sudden you've got this massive chat going on about whatever it might be, and you're walking out with an album you've never heard of.
I think that's what's different. I'm racking my brain. I'm just circling back to what you said at the beginning about how when time was long, I've got all this time to do the music, and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And when you got Spotify, you've got basically all the music, but like no, and it's I think it dovetails. It dovetails. It's a very similar thing.
And I don't know whether it's my brain or everyone's, but I can't get on with Netflix.
No, I can't either,
because I'm overwhelmed.
Yes, too much choice.
I see everything is there, and I don't know what to watch, and I can't be bothered to get knee deep in something.
Well, that's a classic marketing problem. If we have 15, 16 jams in the store, you're less likely to buy one. If you've got 3 or 4, you're probably
same as a cheap jeweller. Have you ever been to a cheap jeweller?
Laurie, do I look like I've been to a cheap jeweller? Yes, I do.
But you see all these amazing... Well, they're not even amazing. There's so much of it, you can't possibly decide what it is you want. If there was a lovely display of maybe 3 or 4... you'd choose the one that you want.
We had the same problem in marketing. We used to do, at one point we was doing renders to side of buildings, and we could have any colour. All you need to give us was the Pantone number.
Oh, good God.
And
thousands.
we could, and honestly, people couldn't make their mind up. Yeah. When we just went, there's 5 colours, take it or leave it, mate. They went, oh yeah, we'll have that one.
Again, parameters for creativity, and a timeline.
But going back to the customer base, they are everything from children, right the way through to people in their 80s, and they're all buying for slightly different reasons. There's people looking for that elusive album still that's escaped them over the years. There's people who are rebuying collections because they gave them away, sold them, whatever in the past.
Why the format though? Is it because because there's something different of the quality of sound? I
think that. I don't think I know. There's an analogue warmth to it.
Exactly.
Is that a cliche or is it true?
No, it's true, because when you download something off Spotify, and even when it's put on CD, it's compressed.
Yeah, of course.
So it's compressed so that you can download it easier, or it's compressed so it can fit on a CD. So if you can imagine a racetrack that's got 10 lanes in, they're just using the middle 4 lanes. So you're losing the outside lanes either side of it. Now with a record, you've got all the lanes, so you can hear all the fidelity across, right from the low bass to the high.
But therefore,
treble.
you probably need. and again, this could go on for hours. You're going to have to come back because we're going to have an entire other conversation about record. But presumably, you have to have the speakers that can cope with it.
Well, yes and no, because you get to a point where, for example, I knew a guy when I was living back in London who was a massive audiophile. And he had record player that was worth £40,000, speakers that were worth £20,000 each, and he had actually got to the point where his speaker wire was solid gold.
Wow!
And I just
in case
it
doesn't sound good enough.
Yeah, it was 200 quid a metre or something.
I have
ridiculous.
read about audiophiles getting completely obsessed.
You just think, right, okay, you've gone too far now.
You've lost your mind.
Yeah.
You've lost your mind.
But you know, we sell a entry level record player, which in fact I had a guy come in, I think on Wednesday, we demoed it, and he was saying exactly the same thing. So I said, what's the difference then, mate? Come on, there's no difference, is there? So I put a record on, he went, oh blimey, yeah, I can hear the difference.
I know there is, I was just being very contrary.
Yeah, and it was like an 85 quid record player with speakers the size, I don't know, 3-inch speakers, something like that in it. And then you go up from that, and the reason why that's been so popular is so that people can get back into it.
Yes, it's like it's a good entry level.
It's a good entry level thing. A sensible thing. Am I going to like it? Am I going to pursue this any further? As soon as you start pursuing it further, then go out and spend £1,000 on a record player and £1,000 on amplifier and £1,000 on speakers or whatever.
I had a similar experience with my ex-girlfriend. She was amazingly musical, brilliant voice, and she played grade 8 euphonium. It's like, why? But she did.
Crikey.
However, she also had an amazing ear for music, beautiful singer, a cappella, and she'd pick up a recorder and she'd go, and it was like she could play anything. And I bought her a clarinet. However, I didn't buy the clarinet because it was a good one. I rented it just to see if she'd like it.
Right.
And then we split up. So anyway.
So you didn't find out she liked it.
But that's a great way of doing it, isn't it? Because you're giving someone the way to... You're advising and then helping them get into it at a sensible level.
Yeah, and we even do a deal on it for people as well, so that we do a 10% off your starter pack, if you like. So come in. I'm not sure if I'm going to like this or not. We do a demo install. If you want to go with it, we take 10% off a package, which is a record player, a cleaning kit,
and some Led Zeppelin,
and whatever records you want.
That's fab.
And then they can take it home, and away they go. And then, pretty much 90% of the people have been back. The other great thing that's happened is that we've had so many customers come in saying, you know what, since your shop has opened, I've got up in the loft and I've got all my stuff down and I'm now listening to it. And they've now become customers because they've got all their stuff out and they've still got holes in their collection and stuff like that. So it's a really lovely thing that's kind of happened.
I think it's fantastic.
That all of a sudden people, and I'm not saying it would have happened or wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have been there or whatever, but it feels like there had to be a catalyst to start this kind of thing going. And what's generally happened now is that obviously people in Whitchurch now obviously know me, but the surrounding villages, and the idea of why I think Whitchurch was so great, not that it's a very unique town, because we haven't really spoken about the town, and I love Whitchurch because it's such a great little market town. There's so many independent shops, which is so unique in this day and age.
In a very, very small area.
Very small area, absolutely. And it just seemed obvious to me that the nearest record shops were either in Shrewsbury or Chester. Now, I'm sure we've all been to Shrewsbury and or Chester, and you have to queue up to get in the car park, and it's £6 or £8 for the day parking, and then because you're in there it's going to be a day, so you're going to have some lunch out, and that's £30 and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, just by going out to Shrewsbury or Chester, you've kind of done £50 before you even start buying anything. And the idea with Whitchurch is all those people from those surrounding towns and villages, instead of going to Shrewsbury or to Chester for their records, you know what, they can come into Whitchurch, and even if they have to pay in the car park, I don't know what, it's about £2.50, £3 for the day. It's not a lot of money, but you've got Tesco. I know it's only 2 hours now, but you have, and there's plenty of free parking spaces. If I
can always find a space opposite your shop. I'm lucky. It's nice that you reserve it for me. It's very kind.
Well, I do my best. But it just seemed like a sensible thing, because people, I obviously love more footfall. I think every shop in Whitchurch would love more footfall, but at the same time, my shop is slightly different in that, for example, if you haven't got a record player, you're not going to be walking past the shop and buy a record. It's a planned thing almost, and because it's a planned thing, I get people from quite far afield. We have people coming from Manchester, from Birmingham, from Liverpool.
Well, it's deliberate and on purpose.
Absolutely. I had a phone call about it's about 3 weeks ago now, and it was actually no, it was a text. Sorry, 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, text. Have you got the Record Store Day Dada album? So yeah, I've got one left. Okay, right, I'm coming up. I said, okay, what time? I'll put it aside. And he said, I'm not sure. I'm 4 hours away. And the guy drove 4 hours to get that one record because I was the only place that still had a copy available.
And I'm not surprised because of what you're selling, because these people are into, what are you called, Dave? Collectivists
or completionists?
Completionists, sorry.
Yeah.
So because the rarity that it is quite niche. There aren't loads of them around. It's a revival movement, so it is naturally going to have those kind of customers as well.
Absolutely.
And do you know what I really like about it as well? And I think not much shopping. And okay, if you're kind of coming in on a mission to, I'm looking for this. But what I think is great about record shops, especially yours or a vinyl shop, I think they could be really, really sociable. So it's sociable shopping. Yeah. You are having conversations about a shared passion.
Yeah.
Like you might do at a sports match.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be doing that in Tesco's or Sainsbury's.
No.
Arguing about, this is 24 days mature, 28. Let's all chat about this, and then we'll discuss the haricot we're going to have.
A yellow label, really.
But music. So I think there's a lovely sociable element to it. Well, it could be.
When I first opened the shop, I did have tables all down the middle and stalls. And the idea was that people would come in with a cup of coffee, sit down, and they could chat, listen to any of the records that we had before purchasing, and all the rest of it. I did look at the little booths you used to get in the city.
Just about I got one of those.
There was a bit of an issue around rights on that because, bizarrely, you need separate PRS for each one.
Yeah,
which would have cost a fortune. So I had to knock that on the head, but. The idea was to have that community feel, and we did have that. We did have people sitting down, but the shop grew so quickly we just needed the space for stock. But now we still have that kind of effect because the people that have been in previously, we have a cup of tea now. I go out and make a cup of tea for people, and we stand and chat, and that's the difference between shopping online and coming into certainly my shop in terms of independent record shops, but the majority of independent record shops.
It's personal, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It feels more personal. Hey, you're right, pal.
Yeah,
welcome back. Have a brew.
Absolutely.
That's that's I think,
and that's the uniqueness.
It is, absolutely. And I think that's in reality. I think that's where towns such as Whitchurch almost need to be going. And I think it's. Yes, we all want more footfall, but I think there's the viability of it as well. And I think you are like these podcasts. You go to an independent shop because it might be a little bit different. You want that feeling of community. People might actually take for granted that in 20 years' time it might not exist.
Yeah.
But we've all been quite culpable of that. Yes, sometimes it could be a bit more expensive, but I'm not going to get into socioeconomics here. But it's that. I want to go into this shop because I like this person.
Absolutely.
I like seeing them.
Yeah.
I like what they've done. And okay, the product might be a little bit different, might be a bit better, might be whatever, might be quite unique.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you're going in to try and have a chat or see that person because you like them.
Absolutely right. And I think that goes for a lot of the shops in Whitchurch. Most of the shops that I go in, and I've when I kitted the shop out, I bought as much as I possibly could from the high street in terms of the fridge came from Barlow's up the road and all the rest of it. I could have got onto AO or whatever and got probably the same thing 10 quid cheaper. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even look, but that wasn't the point. The point is that if we all want somewhere to go and shop, we all have to contribute.
Absolutely.
Now, I've not got any God-given right to expect everyone who collects records to only buy records from me. I'm not that stupid. But at the same time, I think a lot of my customers realise that actually, if it is £1 more expensive, it's £1. And that keeps that high street alive. Now, in a lot of cases, we're cheaper. We had a guy the other day who was looking on Amazon, and we was £2 cheaper. So it works both ways. We also had a guy who rang me Wednesday last week and wanted the new Pulp album. but he couldn't get in till Saturday, so it was put aside and all the rest of it, and he could come in at his leisure on Saturday and he picked it up. You know, they're the sort of things that you don't get.
I know. Again, I said before, like a blast from the past. Put it to one side. I'll be in for it. That's like
Absolutely.
It's old school. It's
Absolutely.
really, really lovely.
And that's the way. When I used to go into record shops, even silly little things like I used to go into record shops all the time, and I used to buy records all the time. And when I used to buy second hand, it was a massive bugbear of mine that if it skipped or scratched or whatever. Now, we've made a conscious effort, and obviously we're never going to get it right 100% of the time because we get thousands of second hand records, but we look at every single one. We clean every single one, and if there's a scuff on it, 9 times out of 10 that plays, so we leave that in. If there's a dirty great scratch across it, it goes to one side. It's not sold. Equally, when we've got all the second-hand stock out, we had to kind of have a demarcation point, and that was, we decided that was £20. So anything that was £20 or more, we would play test in the shop. So it at least gives people a little bit of comfort that if they see the little play tested sticker on, that's been played on my record player in the shop and it played all the way through. And then when we'd done all the 20s and above, we'd drop down to 15 and all the rest of it, and we'd gradually try and we never get through them all because there's way too many. We turn the stock too quickly.
Well, it's play tested if it's personal.
Absolutely.
It's personal.
Yeah, so I'm trying, the way I kind of look at it is that if I was the customer walking through the door, how would I like the shop laid out? I'd like it to feel welcoming. I'd like to be comfortable in there. I'd like the person to chat to me, and I'd like a bit of reassurance that the records are going to work. And we get loads and loads of feedback online through social media of people saying, you know, absolutely brilliant. Record came back, absolutely no problem with it, played perfectly, etc., etc. And that's what I'm trying to achieve, so that when someone is confronted with the option, if you like, of buying from me or buying from elsewhere, there's that bond hopefully already built that actually Mark actually cares about the records and therefore cares about me, as opposed to just ordering something online from another person because it's £4, I don't know, 50p cheaper or whatever it might be. That kind of thing is the way I'd like my business to be seen and run. And so far, that's kind of put me in good stead. It makes it difficult at times because I have to be really picky with the stock that I buy in. I'm offered some fantastic stock, but is in really bad order. And I know that someone somewhere would take that stock on.
I know, but choices might be, choices have to be you
Absolutely.
Might have to just not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but I couldn't give you that.
Absolutely.
I couldn't let you have that.
Absolutely. And hopefully, what we're creating is an environment of not only comfort but a bit of reassurance that actually, I might have, we've got customers who've bought hundreds of records from me. Now, I mean, we're coming up to almost a year now being in that shop, and the amount of stock we've turned, the amount of customers that have been through the door, and I can honestly say that pretty much every single one is now repeating customer. I see so many familiar faces.
I bet you do.
And it was nice actually Saturday with the new market that was in town on Saturday. There was a few new faces again, and hopefully that's the start of something. More customers, long term, etc., etc.
I think what you're doing, and I think Maria to a point as well when we were speaking, and Stella actually, it's not going to be for everybody. We were talking about AI, that 90% of the time for 90% of people AI is good enough, but for other people it just really, really isn't. And you are appealing to that target market who understand or are open to understanding the process, excitement, anticipation and joy of owning something tangible and putting it on and hearing it as originally as it possibly could be from an artist they love, and being open to that experience.
Yep.
And okay, you could argue the world's moved on. I love music. I absolutely adore it. I didn't listen to it for about a year or so, and I got back into it. And I sometimes think about music. It's like there's so much that I love that means there's so much stuff out there that I'm never going to hear that I know I would love, and it's frustrating. but you are, so I can, I can see the advantages of, the modern streaming, etc. But that process is a lovely, beautiful process.
Yeah.
And it actually does appeal to human psychology and human emotion, which is exactly what music is about.
Absolutely.
And so the two really should be inextricably linked. And whilst it's not appealing to everybody, it's appealing to a lot of people that maybe they know about it, or it's like, actually, you try this, it's brilliant.
Well, I think,
and you're doing that.
Yeah, I think I don't get me wrong, I've got plenty of female customers as well as male customers, but male customers are the completists, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
There is some inbuilt gene in blokes that means you've got to collect shit.
I
think
catch them all.
Not me. I live on a boat and there's no room.
There is an awful large customer base in that, but at the same time there is also the idea that, quite frankly, young people are equally as annoyed and grumpy about Spotify and Apple Music as I am. Yeah. In that, I remember I had the free version because I was too tight to pay for it, the free version of Spotify, and all I wanted to do was play an album from start to finish.
No,
wouldn't let me.
Feed you crap.
Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't let me do it. Couldn't do it. Could not. So if you've got a concept album, Dark Side of the Moon, I don't want to listen to the first track of Dark Side of the Moon and then, I don't know, Sabrina Carpenter comes on for a track and then...
No, yikes.
But that was kind of what was happening. It was just bizarre, and I think people are now understanding. They want to listen to the album from start to finish, like the artist.
Yeah, but interesting, you said you just you didn't pay for it.
No.
Well, therefore, that's the paradox, isn't it?
That's what you get.
If you love your music and you respect your artists, people need to pay for it, because we still expect. No, I know.
No, if you've paid, even if you've paid, and you try and listen to Dark Side of the Moon, because it was designed as a vinyl album, each track feeds into the next.
Absolutely.
One.
Yes.
When you get a digital feed, you get the end of the first track stops.
It stops. Yeah. You get a break.
It starts with the beginning of the next track.
So you don't have full control.
No.
Completely, and it ruins it.
Yeah.
If you can imagine how those tracks blend into each other, it was designed as one constant feed of music.
Absolutely.
And it grates on you. It stops and you go, what? And then it starts again. And it's what?
It even annoys me on live albums, because where there's the break between tracks on a live album, there's a physical break.
Yeah.
There's a I don't know, half a second gap, so the crowd noise stops, everything stops, and then bang, next bit. It's just so frustrating and annoying, and is honestly when
it's incomplete.
It is incomplete. There we go. I just, and I think a lot of people are now realising and focusing on those tiny, and it sounds really like a first world problem in that, I'm annoyed about like the half a second gap between tracks. But first of all, when you're streaming, you don't own the music. Yeah, and I think there was a famous case with Bowie, I think it was. So when David Bowie died, he'd bought a load of digital music and wanted to pass it down to his kids. And it was actually in his will. And I think it was, correct me, disclaimers and all the rest of it. I'm not sure which one it was. I think it might have been Apple, I'm not sure. But they refused to pass it down because it had been in his Apple ID. Yeah. And you're not allowed to pass it on. So all that money you've spent on actually physically spending money to buy something, but you don't actually own it, is bizarre.
It's like a leasehold.
Yeah. It's bonkers, really, when you think of it like that.
I get it.
And at the moment, exactly the same with the likes of Netflix and all the rest of it. So I'm going to get on my Netflix high horse now. But you pay for that subscription, but as soon as you no longer can afford or don't want to pay for it anymore, or they decide to take certain films or TV shows off that you might want to watch, you're up the creek without a paddle.
So many and HP went massively heavily on this. They wanted everything as a subscription, ink, paper, the lot.
Yeah.
And it is really, really frustrating because all you're doing is renting it. Yeah. But it created so much ill will, and I think that's the same. So I think there is a natural rebellion amongst a number of people against these services, the inauthenticity of it. And I think that you talk about the process, the tangibility of the record. There are always going to be people who appreciate the bigger picture around it, and it's not just the instantaneous bang now.
Too much choice is like no choice.
I couldn't.
It becomes no choice,
and don't get me wrong. Okay, so with kind of your Apple and your Spotify's and all the rest of it, there is a place for it, because obviously I can't put my record player in my car and listen to records while I'm driving.
It jumps about.
It does a little bit. I think they used to put them in trucks, didn't they? There's a famous, because we had an album come in that was famous truck driving songs, and I was like thinking, who's going to play that, because you're not going to be able to play it in a truck. But anyway, the whole concept of being able to carry your entire record collection around on your phone, plug it into your car or plug it into your headphones while you're at the gym or whatever, or if you're commuting on a train, honestly, it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I do that as much as probably the next person would. The difference is, and we have quite a few customers who they will listen to new albums on Spotify and go, I really like that album, so I'm going to go and get it on vinyl.
Exactly.
And that's the difference, and that's how I think you can use those streaming services smartly. Exactly the same with Netflix. You watch a great film on Netflix and you think, I might want to watch that again, and you see it on DVD, you might buy it, because then you haven't got to, I don't know, the amount of times our internet goes down and all the rest of it, and you kind of got the ring of death as it's kind of passing through, trying to get onto the next scene. All of those things are very similar to a record and a record player. It's not for everyone, and it was never intended for everyone, but at the same time I think more and more people are realising some of the advantages to it, and how they can incorporate that in their life. Because I've gone through periods. I remember there was one time where I'd just finished with one band, and I'd spent so much time, because I was in sales, and I'm doing the inverted commas thing again, because I was in sales, I was also the manager, and I was going to get us the gigs and all the rest of it.
God, you're so much like me. Oh my God.
Honestly,
I did the PA.
It was just,
I thought you hated salespeople, Laurie.
It's the salesperson.
I got to the point where
technical sales different.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I thought, I just can't do this anymore. And I'm lucky, actually. The guy that Paul, who I did most of my writing with, he carries the load 50-50. So we're great together. But in other bands, there's been times where it just falls on one person to do everything. Nothing gets done otherwise. Yeah. And unfortunately, it wears you down. And I remember I got to a point where I fucking had enough of this, and I literally sold all my gear. I thought, I can't do this anymore. I just can't be going to pubs, working 9 till 5 or whatever it was, and then jumping in the car and then going to a pub the other side of London, and you then have to do a sound check at like 6 o'clock or 6:30 or whatever, and then you stand around for 3 hours eating kebabs and drinking beer, and then you go on at 9:30, 10 o'clock. You do 45 minutes. It dependent on what venue you're at, there could be anything from a really nice audience with A&R guys there to one man and a dog, and then you have to drive all the way home at 2 o'clock in the morning, unload Marshall amps, guitars and all the rest of it from the boot of your car, all in readiness to get up again at 6 o'clock the next day to go to work.
You've got to pack your gear down when the DJ's decided to turn his music on.
Absolutely.
A trillion watts.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're going to be deafened while you're putting your gear away.
And DJing is easy.
And you get home for 4 a.m, fresh as a daisy.
Absolutely. And I just got to that
in the next episode in 2 weeks, Laurie and Mark come on and be curmudgeonly about being in bands.
I feel we could do an hour.
Honestly,
it's like.
It was just, it could be soul destroying at times.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I just got to that point where I thought, no, I've had enough, and I stopped playing guitar for about 2 years, and it made me ill. Not having music for that period of time. I don't even play the guitar that much. I mean, my chops are so out of shape because I don't practice anymore. but at the same time, I still like having my guitars and my amps and knowing that I can pick up and play for half an hour, and then all of a sudden, your mental health suddenly gets to a point where you're back in a good place. And I think it's the same with records as well, in that there are go-to albums that I know I can throw on at any time, and it could be anything from remembering the story of when I bought it, the whole thing with the tube journey and all the rest of it, and
the labours that you went
absolutely
through to get to it,
and the day out you had with your mates because something weird or funny happened that day or whatever, even to listening to records that were in my mum and dad's collection that just that was a weird thing as well, listening to records your mum and dad in what would have been the late 70s for me. It was a flipping event. It was like, right, okay, Sunday afternoon, we're going to listen to some records. And the telly would be off, everything would be off, and you'd put the record on, you'd all sit there, like looking at each other, listening to Rod Stewart or something. But that was just such a massive event at that time. And I've got this weird relationship with Rod Stewart albums, Beatle albums, Deep Purple albums, because they were the things that my mum and dad used to listen to all the time, and I've only got to put one of those on and it just transports me back.
Mine was the Chris Barber Jazz Band.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. I mean, I was going to say Rod Stewart ain't particularly lucky.
No. But nonetheless, there's something about it. It's like the glue the centre that binds all things together.
Absolutely, yeah. As I said before, there's a story behind almost every record that you buy or listen to.
Hence the popularity of Desert Island Discs.
Absolutely.
It's evocative. Yeah. Massively evocative.
And, there's a good proportion of my record collection at home that is just nostalgia.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing else. I don't listen to it because I like it. I've even got a Roland Rat album that my dad... My dad was a massive Roland Rat fan.
The music reminds me of the girl reminds me of the car. All three I find go together. What were you listening to? Who were you going out with when you were listening to this, and what car were you driving? For some reason, the three seem to go together for me.
Absolutely. And I think
usually no one.
Yeah, all of that is intertwined. But going back to the music side of things, it was so... I found it so close. And it was in a period where we didn't really talk about mental health or whatever, and I didn't really understand why at the time I'd got to a point where I was not going to play in a band anymore, and then all of a sudden, very quickly started missing it, and then understanding that actually just playing guitar is good for your soul, if nothing else.
Because it's absorbing. So is it because it's so absorbing?
I think it's because you never master it.
Yes.
Yeah. Never do. And also when you play live, there's certain moments when you play live. Sorry, I'm interjecting, but
again,
when you play live, there's just certain moments where everybody's having a great time.
Yeah.
And all you can do is enjoy that moment. So no worries.
Absolutely.
At all. So the crowd's with you.
Absolutely.
Everything's fantastic, and that's it. And it lasts a little bit of a while, and then it's done. I
said to my daughter this morning, actually was in the car, and I was talking about coming on this podcast, and she said something like, why did you do all those late nights gigging and stuff like that? And I went, well, because just for 30 seconds here or 5 minutes there,
one gig out of 5,
you was a rock star.
Amazing thing. Yeah,
you was the man. You walk off stage one day, and I remember one guy, and I was in Piccadilly. It was the comedy club at Leicester Square, and a guy just gave me the greatest compliment that I've ever had, and he said, "You know what? You sounded like Dimebag Darrell out there tonight." And he was the Pantera guitarist, for people who don't know, and one of my heroes. And I just thought, I can dine on that for years. I don't ever have to play another guitar again.
That's fantastic. It's like bear with me. Sorry, carry on.
The only time I think when I first met you, Laurie, and I used to play very amateurishly because I was doing other stuff. But I look back now and I think that's the one thing I wish I kept up. And you said, if you want to get good at it, join a band. And I thought you were talking about what you've just mentioned now, and I didn't know, Mark, whether you would, when you're just playing, it's very good for your mental health. I imagine both doing that solo and also in a band. But when you both talked about, you were a rock star, and obviously I wasn't.
Well, I wasn't either.
But close.
I felt like one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I've done a few best man speeches, and I've probably done 2 that were really good. One was my brother's. He had a huge wedding. It was about 400 people. And I've got to say, it was a really, really, really good speech. It went down like an absolute... I was going to say lead balloon, but that would be the wrong analogy.
That's bad.
A helium balloon.
Yeah.
It went up like a helium, but no, not down like a Zeppelin. No, that's bad. However, and I felt for the night is now mine. And I felt for 3 hours, I felt like, because everyone was coming up and going, and the adrenaline buzz that I got, and delivering it.
You can't get to sleep after a good gig.
No, absolutely.
No, I can imagine.
You need to eat a kebab or two and lie awake.
The amount of times I'd get home, unpack everything, be lying in bed, just like staring at the ceiling, going, no chance I'm going to sleep now. That was just too good. There was one gig we did that I remember where the flipping stage got rushed. It was I just thought, this is amazing.
Well, no, I've got it. I've remembered now. Bang! Sorry, I completely corpsed before. But what it is, it's the sense of connection. You've actually what I hear you guys talking about is you've made a connection with the audience. The chap said you sounded like there's like that moment. Yeah, it's where you've actually made a connection with the audience, and there's something about that.
Well, you can't buy it. You can't make it happen. It happens when it happens. And when it does happen, it's amazing. It doesn't happen every gig, but when it does, you want a gig until it happens again.
Yes, it's a rarefied thing. You'll chase it. You'll even chase it.
It's a drug. Yeah. It is a drug.
Completely a drug.
It is a drug, and it's that. We used to say right at the very beginning when me and Paul first started together, we used to say, when we end up in a covers band, that's it. It's all over. And
I've done both.
You got
to do one and do the other as
well.
the same time.
It got to about 2014, and I just got a bit stale with playing guitar. I'd stopped pushing myself a bit with it, and Paul had moved, and we weren't in a band together, and I was struggling a little bit with the guitar. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to join a band and play bass.
Nice.
And I'd never picked up a bass before, genuinely. And I found this advert. It was a covers band. They were called the 70s, and they did 70s covers, obviously. And they gave me 6 songs to learn, and I played them. I played the right notes, but I played them like a guitarist as opposed to a bass player.
You suddenly discovered playing the bass isn't quite the same as playing a guitar.
Absolutely. And anyway, I did this audition, and they went, "Yeah, no, you're in. Perfect." So they then proceeded to give me 90 songs to learn, and gradually got through them. And I can honestly say it was probably one of the most fun experiences of my life, because not only was I getting paid quite well for it, but you had that instant audience gratification because you were playing whatever it might be, Led Zeppelin or David Bowie or whatever, it's Slade or whatever. And what I thought would be boring about it was the fact that you just end up playing this same set list every night, and it's been grueling in the end. But they were actually quite clever. We had like 15 songs, which were classic songs to start with. And they used to be the same 15, and we used to gauge the audience by that. What are they into? Are they into kind of the soft rock? Are they into the heavier stuff? Are they into more poppy stuff? Whatever it is. And then we'd go through our catalogue of 90 songs for the rest of the set and mix and match it. So you were constantly doing something different, and you had to just be on your toes
reading
musically.
Defending them out.
Absolutely. And it was the most fun I ever had. And Paul saw this whole experience that I went through, kind of never picking up a bass and then learning effectively to play bass on the job, if you like. And he just very recently has now joined a covers band. He always used to play guitar, and he's been learning to play piano for the last 5 years or so, and he's actually now joined a band from scratch. Yeah, he's gone up through the grades. He's about like grade 6 now.
Wow,
something like that. And he's now in a covers band playing keyboards, and it's really nice kind of full circle moment almost, where, and I'm sure you'll agree that it's so difficult with your own own music, because until you get a following, you're just playing to blind audiences the whole time, and it can be soul destroying. And we played some great venues like Hope and Anchor and places like that, and it was always a different audience, and it was so difficult getting that traction. And the greatest thing that's still missing is MySpace. MySpace used to do so much for us.
MySpace, that was the place, wasn't it?
You could just put all your music on there, and then other bands could listen to it. Instant feedback, and equally venues could listen to it, and all the rest of it. It was just such a great way of communicating music between each other when it wasn't, when it was your own material, because no one knows what you sound like. You can say, oh yeah, I sound like Bowie, and no one sounds like Bowie. Do you know what I mean?
Why don't the two of you get together and do something for the scene in Whitchurch? Start a scene.
Play badminton together.
Well, maybe we'll crown green bowls.
Yeah, but we could do a bit of that.
But, I mean, is there anything you do? Is there anything? What is the music scene in Whitchurch like? Is there one?
I think there is a massive one in that there's, and quite frankly, it scares me now, because I sell a few guitars in the shop and what have you as well, and I set them all up and all the rest of it. But we get some kids in, and they're flipping amazing. What they're doing now is kind of light years ahead of what I was doing at that age. Yeah.
How? Is that just their raw talent?
Okay, so I've got this belief about talent. Okay, there is talent available, okay, in every single person, but not every single person is going to be good at football. Not every single person is going to be good at guitar. Not every single person is going to be good at singing. But there is a level of talent in everyone. Now, for example, I've known guitarists that will pick a guitar up and off the bat they were amazing. There'd be guys like me that had to work at it, and there might be other guys who have to work at it harder than me to get to that point. So something that, I don't know, Slash, for example, does in an hour might take me 3 days, might take someone else 4 weeks, but you can get there. And I think what's happened now with kids is YouTube. There's so many tutorials where people can actually physically see someone doing it. You know, I could never get my head around sweep picking, but you go on YouTube and it's broken down into such small pieces that I can understand. Someone younger than myself who's got a brain like a sponge would be able to pick that up so quickly. We've just got some great talent.
You're absolutely. I think you're right about YouTube, and even I remember I taught myself 7 or 8 Fleetwood Mac tunes on piano because I went out with a girl who was named after one of the songs, and so I got this baby grand, and I used YouTube, and my ear for music is okay, but within I was probably 3 or 4 days per song, but by the end of it, and if I just had sheet music, it would have taken me forever. But doing that and watching how people did it on YouTube on piano, it was absolutely brilliant. And I think as well with talent's a funny thing, isn't it? I think there was a book a while ago. I don't know whether I've plagiarised it or just it's sparked something. But you kind of have two things. You have raw ability of 1 to 5.
Yeah.
And then you have effort.
Absolutely.
Of 1 to 5. Now, if you've got 5 on the raw ability and the 1 on the effort,
you're still only ever going to be a 5.
But if you got say 4 and 3.
Yeah,
you're going places.
I remember there was a guy that I used to hang out in a guitar shop, and I got friendly with one of the staff there, and we used to kind of jam together and all the rest of it. He was amazing. He was light years ahead of me, and probably about 15 years younger than me as well. And I remember on one occasion, I just said something flippantly. I said, "Oh, you're so lucky to have that talent," and he went, "Don't say that." And he got really offended because he said, "I put in 3-4 hours practice every day to be able to get to this point."
That's very much like I've had a couple of people that I know have retired, and they've gone, I'm going to get a guitar and I'm going to learn how to play the guitar because you can do it. So kind of how hard could it be?
Yeah.
And it's like, mate, I've been doing it since I was 12.
Yeah.
And I did it because I was passionate about it, and that's a sort of passion that's not available to you now in your 60s, because you need to be able to do it every day. You need to be able to do it for hours of the day because you want to join a band and meet girls. And none of those things apply to you anymore.
Is that because I think we've got a couple of, because I think everybody that we've had on so far has been over the age of 35, and that's probably the youngest. We've got a couple of much younger people coming on this, and I'm just, your palette, passion and talent, both as an artist and in the retail sector. How could you, because I'm thinking of, what do people want in this town? A lot of these people are the future. What's going to keep them around? As music was a huge part of your thing, so you have experienced it. Do you think that's something you could get involved in, or what do you think people are wanting?
Well, I tell you what coming in. I tell you what I think is, it was something that it was a band about the early 2000s I was in. Random plug coming in now. We are available on Spotify, by the way. So the band Crew, his name's Crude Arm, and we did some gigs all around London and South East at the time, and there was a place in Dagenham called Music Tech, and which doesn't exist unfortunately anymore. And they were rehearsal rooms, but they also had a venue there as well. And we used to rehearse there, and the venue was a lovely venue. It was a massive venue, really, bars and all the rest of it. And it was, as you would expect with kind of most venues, it was always a bit hit and miss. You never knew quite what you was going to get, whether there was going to be 3 people there or 300 people there. But they did something which I thought was stroke of genius, which was they had, I think it was an under-18s night. So it was a place where kids could go to watch live music. The bar would only serve soft drinks, so the parents were as happy as they possibly could be, dropping them off at this venue. Now, every time they had one of these under-18s night, they were queued round the block. It was always rammed and packed. And the great thing about kids watching bands is that they're not reserved like adults. They just let themselves go. This might be their one night where they can get to see a band and all the rest of it. So they want to enjoy themselves. And they were absolutely great events. So, somewhere perhaps, I don't know, like Percy's, that's an existing venue in Whitchurch, maybe if they had an under-18s night, and even get some of the bands, some of the younger kids playing as well, getting that experience of playing in front of people and having a tangible place where youngsters can go, because let's be perfectly honest, in Whitchurch there's not a great deal for youngsters to do.
No, not at all.
But if you had something like that where you could go and see live music, and you knew it was under control, they weren't going to an adult bar, they were just going to a bar that only sold soft drinks, I think there's a market for that. I genuinely do.
I completely agree, Mark. When I had my studio, which was called Bash Studios in Harrogate, every Thursday we used to do a bash night at a pub, and it was for people who rehearsed in our studio, and that included lots of teenage bands.
Yeah.
And the pubs were open to the teenage bands, and they'd let the youngsters in to go and watch. And it was really, really popular.
Yeah.
Really popular.
Yeah. I think that would be a great idea for Whitchurch, in giving kids somewhere adult to go almost, because every kid wants to be an adult, but it needs to be kind of censored in some way.
Yeah, but we all know we were all down the booze for it.
Oh yeah, of course we were. Yeah, you're never going to stop someone smuggling stuff in. But
it's actually something that it's an outlet that is okay. If you want to play sport, you can do. It's making it less of a struggle.
Yeah.
To find.
Yeah.
Things like that.
And let's be perfectly honest.
Like you put the record shop there.
Yeah. If someone, probably between the age of 13 and 18. I was jumping on. I was actually going to football matches after school. So it was one bus ride away from White Hart Lane. So I used to go down Spurs. It seems mad now thinking about it, but you'd walk home from school and I'd then get myself ready, pop on a bus down to White Hart Lane, watch football, and then back home again and be home 10:30, 11 or whatever it was, ready for school the next day. Equally, if you had something like that with music related, I think that's an outlet, as you said, for youngsters to be able to fuel that passion to go and see live bands, because the alternative these days is, unfortunately, I mean, there's some great venues in Chester and Shrewsbury and places like that where they do tickets on the door for £5-10 and stuff like that, and they're not overly expensive. But this isn't London where I grew up, where everything was one bus ride away.
Absolutely.
You're in the middle of nowhere. You can't expect a 15-year-old person to go all the way to Chester one evening or one weekend necessarily to then go and see a band, and then you know what the bus services are like around here. I don't think there's even a bus service after about 9 o'clock into Whitchurch. So if you had something in Whitchurch where you could go and see a live band for £3 or £4, £5, whatever, that's a tangible amount of money that is affordable, as opposed to I've got to go with my mum and dad, or I've got to pay extortionate amounts for tickets to see the big bands, your Oasis and all the rest of it. And I think that's a really good entry level, because that's how people not only get into music but get into playing music as well. It's getting into
the playing of it as well, which is the real thing.
And especially if you've got a couple of, like I say, there's been some really talented youngsters come into the shop and sit and play on guitars. If they've got bands, if they was up there and they're the people you go to school with, exactly. I'd be going, flipping hell, I want a piece of that. I want to be up there with them.
That's what started me off.
Yeah,
I wanted to be in a band.
Absolutely.
I didn't really care what music I was going to play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because it is something you look back on. And okay, I was more sports, but you look back and go, crikey, I wish I'd kept that up, just because it would give me pleasure throughout all of my life.
Yeah,
and it is such fun, playing music and actually getting a piece of music that you've heard and you're going, oh my gosh, I can now play this. Yeah. It is amazing satisfaction. Plus you then have the joy, if you want to perform, of doing so. I reckon that could be your next venture. And on that note, pardon the pun, I think I'm probably going to call it a day, if that's all right.
That's fine. It's been a pleasure.
Are we done?
We are not quite done.
Right.
I think you should definitely come back if you'd like to. Because there's so much other stuff we could talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem at all. No, I'm glad you invited me.
But I reckon we've got another 2.5 hours we could go on for. I need a pee. I don't need to fall over Dave. And Laurie needs to say. I think we are done. Laurie, do you want to say something in that slightly weird tone of voice that you use?
I think we're done. Fantastic.
Mark, cheers.
Thank you very much.